Christy Stout reporting live in Christchurch. This is a community in grief, in shock, and united in mourning what happened on Friday, the worst mass shooting in the history of New Zealand, the terrible terror attack on two mosques that took the lives of 49 Muslim worshippers. It was an act that was roundly condemned and criticized here in New Zealand and by political leaders around the world, and also by Muslim leaders who are also saying what happened on Friday here in Christchurch was a symptom of a far larger problem, of rising hatred, of rising xenophobia, and rising Islamophobia. Now, we're going to dig into that angle with our next guest, Zainab Chaudry. She is a spokeswoman for the Council on American Islamic Relations, and she joins us now. Zainab, thank you for joining us here on the program. And your thoughts on this. To what degree is the tragedy and the terror attack that took place here a symptom of something much bigger and much scarier? Rising hate, rising xenophobia and Islamophobia in every corner of the world.
Well, first of all, I'd like to extend my sincere condolences to the families of the victims whose lives were taken in this horrific attack in Christchurch. We know that white supremacy has fueled different kinds of hatred, targeting not just the Muslim community globally, but also Jews, African Americans, various communities who have been affected by this hate. And it's very critical that we take this tragedy and use it as an example of why, especially our elected officials and officials who have public platforms, call out white supremacy for what it is. We are living in a political climate where many communities are living in fear and anxiety because of the ideologies, the virulent ideologies that have been used to perpetuate hatred towards minority communities.
So once we can get most people to recognize the problem here, it's white supremacy, it's hatred, it's xenophobia and Islamophobia. What can be done next? How can we end this sort of extremist thinking that leads to terror attacks?
We need to make sure that elected officials are using resources to counter these problems. Last fall, the Trump administration decreased funding to counter domestic terrorism here in the United States, for example. We need to not only restore that funding, but assess the impact and the scope of the problem and make sure that enough resources are being allocated to address the root core of these issues and make sure that communities feel safe and protected. Individuals need to know that our elected officials have our back, that they are committed to our security and our safety, and that we as a nation and as a world are going to be working together to push back against any forces that are trying to divide our country or our world on any ideology that is intent on demonizing or vilifying any individual based on their race, religion, ethnicity, or anything like that.
And Zainab, this is the social media age. This type of hatred, extremist way of thinking is being fueled, supercharged by the internet, by social media platforms as popular as Facebook and Twitter, in addition to the 4chans and the 8chans. So what can be done there when the hate is so readily available and live streamed online?
We see a lot of hatred in these public spheres, but we're also seeing an incredible amount of good. Just in the last 24 hours, less than 24 hours, over 1.5 million New Zealand dollars have been raised by American Muslim organizations to support the victims and their families in New Zealand. And I think that this is just one example of how the power of our collective humanity will overcome and overshadow any forces that are seeking to divide us. And we should use this as an opportunity to amplify those voices. There have been vigils planned in communities across the nation, around the world. People are coming together to say that this is not who we will be, and we will not stay quiet and stay silent while these forces seek to divide our country and our world based on these virulent ideologies. And so I think it's really important to use this time to amplify those voices and those individuals who are coming together to share the good of humanity and to really drown out the divisiveness that we're witnessing.
Absolutely. Zainab Chaudry, thank you so much for joining us, and take care. And as Zainab was mentioning just then, it's about the forces of coming together to counter the forces that are tearing us apart. And you could see that in vivid display in the floral tribute behind me. You know, this being repeated in many places across Christchurch with messages of compassion, of love, of unity. On the back of that horrific terror attack, love appears to be the answer. I'm Christy Lee Stout. More from Christchurch after the break.